Here we go. I'm now calling the Tuesday, January 21st, 2025 regular meeting of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District Board of Commissioners to order. The time is 7:06 p.m. Please note we are conducting a hybrid meeting, which allows staff and members of the public to attend this meeting via virtual teleconference. The hybrid meeting will be video recorded and posted on the district's website. Because we are video conferencing, we will follow a strict protocol for the benefit of the recording. I will indicate when commissioners, staff, presenters, and the public will provide comments. If you've called into the meeting and are not using a webcam, please state your name prior to providing your comments, and please practice considerate video conferencing etiquette by muting your line when you're not speaking and limiting distracted behavior on camera. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct a roll call.
Okay, commissioners, I will be conducting all roll calls this evening in the same order. Please remember the order so that you are prepared to provide your comment or vote. President Spreen.
Here.
Commissioner Basigi.
Here.
Commissioner McDonald.
Here.
Commissioner Tonka. Commissioner Tyson.
Here.
Commissioner Warren.
Here.
Okay, and we have 6 of our currently active commissioners present. And for the benefit of the recording, I will also conduct a presenters, consultants, and staff roll call. Santa Clara County Fire Department Fire Chief Kirkhow is here. Thank you. And Chief Glass and Chief left. Okay, all right, thank you. I don't see. Oh, okay. Yes, we have our Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council CEO Seth Shallett is here. Thank you. And we have Municipal Resource Group Strategic Planning Consultant Scott. Okay. Fryer and Loretta Engineering Consultant Tarantino is joining us at 8:30. Community Education Risk Reduction Manager Gluhan.
Present.
Emergency Services Manager Beebe.
Present.
Programs Planning Grants Manager Woods.
Present.
Thank you. Technical Analyst Project Manager Cronin. Project Operations Manager Russell.
Present.
General Analyst Georgie.
Present.
Field Manager Harmon. It's online. Technical Data Analyst Martinez. Community Event Specialist Sachiva. Okay. Project Manager Administration Revlar is in the audience. Project Manager Risk Reduction King Rob.
Here.
Thank you. Finance Manager Moriali.
Present.
General Manager Logan.
Present.
Deputy County Counsel Forbat.
Present.
Right. And I do want to also, just for the purpose of the record, Indu Kadambi, who is our new commissioner, will be being sworn in shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, District Clerk Vargas. Now moving on to item 2, Commission President remarks. First, I'd like to announce that as a courtesy, any members of the public having objections to the proposed abatement of hazardous weed, brush, and or rubbish on properties as listed in the attachment to Resolution 25-02 under Agenda Item 8C are being given an opportunity to discuss their situation with Santa Clara County Weed Abatement Manager before providing public testimony in that item. Are there any members of the public here who'd like to speak privately on that item during this time before that agenda item? Seeing none.
Don't see any online.
We always try and make that courtesy when this item comes up so that members of the public get the most time dealing with that issue. Okay, thank you. Once again, welcome to everyone. What an amazingly positive energy here. We just want to say this is the first meeting we've had of this kind, I think. Not only is it the first meeting we've had in 2 months, it's the first meeting of this new year, 2025. It's the first meeting with a new commissioner in a long time, who we welcome. And it's certainly a first meeting where we've had our county district supervisor, new district county supervisor in attendance, which is indeed a great honor. Now, this sounds celebratory, and it is, but also I will also need to say, this is the first meeting since the almost unbelievable fires happening in LA, and we can't move forward without mentioning that. I'm sure this has rocked every single resident of Los Altos Hills and the surrounding areas of the district, and there's no more tragic reminder of how serious our reasons for being here actually are. My assumption is that every resident in the past few weeks has probably wondered, are we doing the right things here? You know, are we doing things to keep these residents safe? Are we making a difference? Are we being responsible with the decisions we make here? And that will inform everything we do It always has, and it will continue to do so even more. And I just want to assure residents, we are, watching what's happening in LA makes you look at every program we have and wonder, look, we're doing fuel reduction, we're doing home hardening, we're doing firewise communities, evacuation route hardening, emergency preparation of all kinds, CERT training, maintaining a robust hydrant system, working with an effective and dedicated fire department and first responders. All of those things we deal with every single time, and we are trying to make sure those are as effective as possible for our residents. Now, the silver lining in this terrible black cloud, to my mind, is that I expect this will inspire, hopefully, more resident participation. It's a lot of times it's hard for us to get residents to listen to what we're trying to say, and I hate to see fear motivating residents, but we want them coming and asking what more we can do for them and what they can do, because it's going to take the residents to really mitigate as much as we can. But anyway, that being said, we have some important things to move on to. Most importantly, let's move on to the seating of our new commissioner. This is item 3, administering the oath of office and seating of commissioners by the supervisor, Margaret Abe-Koga, Board of Supervisors, District 5. On behalf of the commission, I'm very pleased to welcome our County of Santa Clara District 5 supervisor, who joins us tonight to administer the oath of office and seating of newly appointed Commissioner Indu Kadambi. I hope I've said that right. Is that okay? And reappointed commissioners, myself, Roger Spreen, and Mark Warren, sitting to my left. First, a few words of introduction. Santa Clara County District 5 Supervisor Abe-Koga started her public service as a congressional aide to U.S. Representative Anna Eshoo. Her elected and appointed public office positions include the Santa Clara County Board of Education, 4 terms on the Mountain View City Council beginning in 2007, Vice Mayor of Mountain View in 2008 and 2019, Mayor of Mountain View in 2009 and 2020, and the San Francisco Regional Water Quality Control Board in 2012. She has served on numerous regional commissions and boards, including the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, Valley Transportation Authority, Santa Clara County Cities Association, Bay Area Quality Management District, and the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board, I assume with Commissioner Tyson here. All right. This is quite a mouthful of things. This is really amazing. In addition to her elected and appointed services, Supervisor Abe-Koga has been very active in the community and has been recognized with numerous awards for her leadership. She's a graduate of Harvard University, where she earned her bachelor's degree in government. Welcome, Supervisor, and please administer the oath of office and seating of Commissioners Kadambi, myself, and Warren. I think we're going to start with our newest.
If Indu, Roger,
We'll all come up?
and Mark want to
Okay.
come down to the lectern.
Oh, good evening, and thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be here. As mentioned, I'm the new District 5 supervisor, 15 days in. And so I'm really, really pleased and just really honored to be here to swear in our returning commissioners and our new commissioner. As mentioned, I think what's happening in Southern California really emphasizes the importance of the work that you do. As a city council member for 16 years, public safety has always been top priority. When you ask the community, that's what they want from our government. And especially fire safety has been really key, something that I've really taken to heart. I've done everything I can to learn about the fire service, and I just want to offer my thanks and gratitude to our fire personnel. We have, I believe, 79 firefighters from the county down and strike teams helping out in Southern California. So I wish for their safety and just my deepest gratitude for the service. So with that, I'm so pleased. Thank you so much for having me. We will start with our new commissioner, Indu Kadambi. And if you don't know where would you like her to stand? Here?
Is
Like
this a good place?
Is that it?
Let's move over here.
If you could use your right hand and repeat after me. I, Indu Kadambi,
I, Indu Kadambi,
do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
or purpose evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties I am about to enter.
the duties I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If you could
Yep.
raise your right hand. I, Mark Warrant,
I, Mark Warren,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution
that I will support and defend the Constitution
of the United States
of the United
and
States
the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of
of
California
the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic.
that I will
Bear true
bear
faith and
true faith and
and allegiance
allegiance.
to the same.
Yes, remember, true faith and allegiance to the Constitution
true faith and allegiance to the Constitution
of the United States.
of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of
and
California.
the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely
That I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion.
and that I will well and dutifully, faithfully discharge
That I will well and dutifully, faithfully discharge
the duties
the duties
upon
the-
which I'm about to.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Great, congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll probably do it next time, Will. Sorry about that.
No, I have no excuse not to mess up. Now I'm kind of nervous.
Great. I, Roger
I, Roger Spreen,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of
and the
California
Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United
to
States
the Constitution of the United
and the
States
Constitution of the State of
and the
California,
Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental
or
reservation
purpose of
or
evasion,
purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties I'm about to enter.
the duties I'm about to enter. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For being here.
Thank you all. Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Do it right now. Yes. Okay. There you go. Whew. All right. Let's see, if we got everybody, okay. Thank you so much to our supervisor and everyone. Congratulations to Commissioner Kanambi for her first term in office and Commissioner Warren for appointment to his third term to office. And I'd like to extend my thanks for being appointed for a third term myself. Finally, I'd like to note, oh, wow. Thank you. Ray. Yeah. Finally, I'd like to note that for the record that Commissioner Tonka was unable to attend tonight's meeting, but she has already been administered the oath of office for her second term of office. So we really thank her for participating. She's such a wonderful commissioner for us. We will now move on to item 4, public comment. All right. Persons wishing to address the commission on any subject not on the agenda may do so now. Please note, however, the commission is not able to undertake extended discussion or action tonight on items not on the agenda. Items may be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include placement on the next available agenda. District policies to limit public testimony to 3 minutes per speaker unless the number of speakers requires the commission president to impose shorter time limits. Do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda? I see, looks like one.
Yes.
My name is Alan Epstein. I live in the district. First of all, Happy New Year to all of you and welcome back after 2 months. I'd like to remind you of my request to improve the search engine. This is my 4th year standing up here asking for you to improve the search engine. The budget of this district is 18 or so million. You got 13 to 20 effective employees. You've got consultants who can provide expertise in this regard. I'm not taking it personally, but I would appreciate it if the search engine would be improved so that the public could find things more readily on the website. Second, I'd just like to bring to your attention that the county supervisor voted last week to dissolve the South County Fire District and merge it into Central Fire District. I was surprised by that decision since for over 3 years now, there's been a study supposedly ongoing, an operational study that was started by Supervisor Simidian, and the results of that study has not been completed yet. So I was quite surprised that they would take that action when that study hasn't been completed. But I'm concerned about the possibility of the implications of that study with regards to this district as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Do we have a comment online?
Yes, we do, from Steve Jordan.
Thank you. My name is Steve Jordan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I am an elected board member for Pearson Hills Water District at the other end of the parking lot that you're at. I've had the opportunity to work with most of the commissioners over a few years on many topics. Most recent has been our request to install basically leak sensors on the fire hydrants. It's a cap that replaces the existing cap on the fire hydrants, and we reached agreement on that. We've been working with Valley Water for almost 2 years on working out the rebate program because they're going to help pay for it. We concluded that late last year, ordered the caps, and we've installed the entire lot. About 400, a little over 400 caps are installed, so roughly half the hydrants. Literally, we found our first leak. It was below some concrete, so it would have probably never surfaced. But so I just wanted to, number one, thank the district and let you know that they're installed and apparently working. So this is good news. Of course, what we're looking for is to find leaks as they form so that we are less likely to have to tear up roads and ruin roads and be out of water. And then secondly, I wanted to, given what's happening in LA, I wanted to make sure that you knew, and I know our staffs have been talking on this, but Charisma has a very robust hydraulic model of our system. And the discussions that I think are underway are that we should try to model how it would perform in some type of worst case disaster scenario where you needed a lot of trucks drawing on it, because obviously we don't want to run out of water. We think we've built a robust system. We have 10 million gallons of potential storage in place if necessary. And of course, storage is important if you want to hook a lot of trucks up to a lot of hydrants. So I wanted to make sure that the commission knew about that. And I suspect our management teams will be working with each other at some point soon. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Very informational. Appreciate it. Any other public comments on items not on the agenda?
I do not see any.
Seeing none, great. In that case, we'll move on to item 5, which is recognition of Emergency Services Manager Bibi for her award as the 2024 Emergency Manager of the Year. I'm going to ask her to come up to the lectern where I can read something. Let's see. We'll have to do this. Have my hands, I'll have to read this. Whereas the Santa Clara County Emergency Managers Association awarded Victoria Beebe, while Southwest Hills County Fire District Emergency Services Manager, 2024 Emergency Manager of the Year. Whereas this award recognizes exceptional efforts in emergency management, with significant contributions to the Santa Clara County operational area and leadership in 12 communities active. And whereas she will serve as the 2025 president of the board of the Santa Clara County Emergency Managers Association, the mission is to support professional development and advancement of emergency managers within the Santa Clara County operations area. And whereas Vivi has served on Los Altos Hills County Fire District Emergency Services since 2022 to build emergency preparedness programs, community outreach, training and growth volunteers, Los Altos Hills Serve, and establish the community serve program. Therefore, Los Altos Hills County Fire District recognizes her exceptional efforts in emergency management and her dedication to improving resident resilience in Los Altos Hills. Thank you, Emergency Services Manager, for your commitment to safety and well-being of our people.
First of all, thank you very much for recognizing me. It's hard for me to get these kind of things, but truthfully, honestly, the people in this room, the commissioners, the staff, Jay, the residents are really the important people here. I have gotten so much support in starting programs, so much staff support, management support, commissioners. Really, it takes a village to get this far. So I really want to thank you for recognizing me, but also to thank the people in this room as well, because leaders are only good as the people that they work with. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Okay, before we proceed to the agenda on consent and discussion items, I'd like to remind attendees on Zoom and in person that if there are any questions related to the agenda items, please address the questions to me, the board president, and I will take the questions under submission for a response either at this meeting or a response at a time when the questions can be researched or respond myself to the inquiry. Thank you for following this meeting protocol that's consistent with county meetings. Now moving on to item 6, agenda amendments and changes. I'd like to propose a change to the ordered agenda and move item 10, district fire hydrant projects, to follow item 12, the report on the I-280 hazardous fuel reduction project planning. Would any commissioners like to make any additional changes?
I would like to, on the consent calendar, I'd like to bring item I2, the notice delivery of the 2 district-owned F-150 trucks, up into the agenda so we can actually have the general manager present that.
Okay. Any other changes to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to move item 10 to follow item 12 and to bring forward the news item of the trucks forward to a specific report. Will the commissioner making the motion, the commissioner seconding the motion, please state your names for the benefit of the recording?
CG moves.
Adambi?
Seconds, great.
Seconds, yeah.
Thank you. You're on the books now. Exactly. The item's open for discussion. Any discussion on this changes? Seeing none. Any public comment on those changes? Seeing none.
We'll actually have to take a roll call.
Let's take a roll call.
Okay, President Spreen?
Yes.
Commissioner CG?
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner, trying to do this from memory. Kadabi?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Did I get everyone? The motion passes 6-0 with 1 absent.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7, the consent calendar. Now, real quickly, every meeting we sort of balance executing business of the district with informational and progress reporting. Every meeting is sort of a different slight balance. Tonight, we have a lot of business to conduct. So those looking for project updates will need to check out the staff reports in the packet. I really encourage you to do so. There's a lot of great information there. Other meetings will have more information done at these meetings, but a lot of it's in there. So please do that. And a few items I'll draw your attention to is that there's a number of emergency preparedness items that are going to be sent to residents, both in the upcoming Los Altos Hills weekly report. We have a magazine coming in March, and the annual preparedness guide is coming out. So there is a lot of information coming out to residents. Other thing I'll mention is that Hidden Villa was recognized as our 7th Firewise community, which is a significant property, and that's great. Thank you to everyone involved with Firewise. It's a huge win. Let's see. I think that'll be enough. Let's move forward. And do you want to go with the general manager report? The general manager report, and then we'll do the consent. Is that what you were asking for? Yeah, okay. So as part of the consent calendar, she's going to
got it.
mention one of the items.
I just wanted to mention that we were very fortunate after a year of procurement opportunities to actually have now in possession 2 F-150 hybrid white utility trucks available to our evacuation team and our emergency preparedness team, and particularly events. And I'd like to introduce Russ Moriali and Ryan Cronin to join the microphone and talk about the delivery and the excitement that we have to have these 2 vehicles. As you might recall, the commission and the district had a vehicle. It was a Ford SUV Escape. Probably maybe 10 years ago. It was retired after a hard life and a lot of mileage. And so this is the replacement of that SUV, and then also an additional Ford truck.
Yes, President Sprain and members of the commissions, we want to thank you, first of all, for providing us with the resources to make these purchases. You might recall these trucks were in the budget in the prior year, and it's taken a while to procure them. And we can only procure them, first of all, because you provided for the allocations. But secondly, you provided us with the ability to enter into a competitive bid contract with a company called Sourcewell and National Auto Fleet Group. So Ryan and I have teamed up, and we've looked at the specifications on these vehicles. And it's taken about 4 to 5 months to get them spec'd, ordered, to actually find them. But they are here both and delivered. And one's sitting out in the parking lot right now. So we're very pleased, but I'll let Ryan speak to the operations because I just know dollars, but I don't know trucks. And Ryan can speak to that very well.
Thank you very much, Russ. When we were considering our vehicle, we looked at, well, what are our needs? And we've kind of identified 2 primary areas. We need a utility vehicle that could be used in adverse conditions. And then we probably need also a light transport people and equipment for other events. Okay, so looking at that, our initial, as firefighters, our initial response is we need a diesel F-250 because that's what everybody has. But we're not in first response, but we do need something that can work when the power's out and can work when the sun's not shining. And so the hybrid was a perfect mix. They're very popular, they're very hard to find, but Russ did his digging. Again, I'll mention Sourcewell. It's going to be amazing for our district, what it provides. But through that, we were able to identify and secure these 2 hybrids. They are amazing. They are a EcoBoost turbocharged V6, which has plenty of juice, and it has an electric component to it, which has maximum torque at 0 RPM. So this thing has got lots of power, lots of functionality. They are both 4-wheel drive. Only one of them is marked as so, but they are both 4-wheel drive. So they're very capable in adverse weather. They basically charge themselves. So we're not going to be dependent upon an external electrical source. We got the 4 doors. We have 2 different size beds. One's a little longer than the other. So it has the capacity that we need. They're wonderful. So I invite you to come see it whenever you want, either take a break or after the commission, or I'll bring it to you and show it off personally. Okay. Any further questions?
Any other questions?
Very good. And when do we get the decals on the doors?
I'll leave that to Jay. We have, Well, I'll say one thing. We tried to put the magnets on it, but the Fords are an aluminum body,
Right.
so it won't stick. You can decide if you want them marked or not.
I think we're gonna need to, wrap it or get,
I
decals.
like the wrap.
Wrap.
And to finish this up, we still have some accessories to get. It came fully loaded with all the safety features for sure. But there are some accessories that we want in the bed of the truck. And we're working with staff right now to get those accessories. By the way, we came in combined about $35,000 under budget on both of these purchases. So the procurement went very well. We received good pricing and wonderful service from the Sourcewell and National Auto Fleet Group, which, by the way, we deal with the Watsonville dealership in that whole cooperative.
Great.
And I want to thank also the county council, because we could not have done this without the support of Aaron in particular in reviewing that contract process, as helping us through it, and really guiding us through that whole competitive bid process, which has worked wonderfully.
Great. Thank you, Russ and Aaron. Really appreciate it. Oh,
Thank you very much.
wow. Okay, any other, let's see, comments on the consent calendar?
Well, to get ready for this meeting, I looked through all of the background info and I understood completely why we wanted to shorten the meeting by putting all these items on consent, but it is so chock full of info. I even identified 3 things that really caught my eye. And unfortunately, my partners up here have already spilled the beans on 2 of them. I wanted to talk about the truck and then also Hidden Villa as the Firewise community. And the other thing that caught my eye was the Flashy Fuels pilot project, which I thought showed a lot of innovation and being responsive and nimble, I guess is the right word for dealing with short-term grass issues and fuel. So those are the things that caught my eye, but there's plenty there for everybody to look through.
Excellent. Any other comments on the consent calendar itself? Okay, let's see. I'll now entertain a motion. Commissioner making a motion
Tyson moves approval.
in a second.
Warren seconds.
Great. Any discussion here on these items? Nope. Any public comment? I see we have one on the consent items.
Yes, thank you, Alan Epstein. I live in the district. I'd like to bring to the attention of the commissioners the financial statement for the month of December, and in particular, the projects and programs subtotal. The project and program subtotal year to date is $611,000. The budget was $1.6 million. The 611 represents just 13.6% of what the intended expenditure was for the course of the year. I bring this to your attention for two reasons. One, because the accuracy of the budgeting process, but also with regards to the new budget that you're going to talk about later on in the meeting today. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments? Seeing
I don't see any.
none, we'll now move for a vote.
Okay. President Spreen,
Yes.
Commissioner Basigi,
Yes.
Commissioner Gadambi,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
The motion passes 6-0 with 1 absent.
Thank you. Moving on to item 8. We'll start with item 8A to receive a presentation on the weed abatement process before moving on to item 8B, which is opening the public hearing and receiving any public testimony. Project Operations Manager Russell will be providing us this report.
Good evening. Thank you, President Spring, commissioners, staff, public. In light of California's escalating wildfire risk, the state has implemented critical measures such as the California Fire Code, Building Code, and health and safety laws. Compliance with weed abatement standards known as the minimum fire safety standards are mandatory for all property owners within the Los Altos Hills County Fire District. Additionally, those residing in designated fire hazard severity zones of the wildland urban interface, which are also known as WUI, are required to meet defensible space standards. The Santa Clara County Fire Department sends notification to these property owners at the beginning of each year to remind them of their defensible space obligations and the process. When property owners fail to comply as a last resort, they are referred to the County Weed Abatement Program. Tonight, the County Weed Abatement Manager, Garrick Ioselewski, how did I do with your name? Perfect. Is here to present the list of property owners who are on that weed abatement list. The commissioners will vote on adopting Resolution 2502, which authorizes the abatement of weeds, brush, and/or rubbish on the identified properties. So I'd like to take a moment to review this process, which can sometimes be a bit complicated. So we'll start on slide 2. And I want to review one of the topics that can confuse people are the two agencies who prioritize public safety through education and inspections, and lastly, enforcement as a last resort. County Weed Abatement and Santa Clara County Fire Department. So let's review their roles and responsibilities. We'll start with weed abatement, Santa Clara County Weed Abatement. They conduct weed abatement inspections. They are responsible for enforcement. And the question of who must comply, all Los Altos Hills residents are required to comply with weed abatement laws. When they must comply by April 30th and remain compliant through October 31st. The Santa Clara County Fire Department, they conduct the WUI inspections, and who must comply with those? Property owners who are in the designated WUI that Santa Clara County Fire Department sends WUI letters in February notifying property owners of their obligations and the requirements. When compliance is required by May 31st, and residents must remain compliant through the end of the fire season, which is usually October or November. Non-compliant property owners are referred to the Santa Clara County Weed Abatement for enforcement. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. You're not moving my slide, as it turns out. So what is Los Altos Hills County Fire District's role? We collaborate with Santa Clara County Fire Department and the Santa Clara County Weed Abatement. We support property owners' compliance efforts through multiple programs and projects. Our efforts in 2024 included, in December, we sent a letter to property owners that were on the list, the 82 property owners. And that information included, it was an additional notification in addition to Santa Clara County Weed Abatement's letter packet that goes out to all of those property owners. We let them know that they're on that list. We let them know about the upcoming public hearing details, which is tonight. Contact information, so they may contact us or County Weed Abatement, information about our programs and projects that can support their compliance efforts. We also coordinate messaging and outreach with Santa Clara County Fire Department and Weed Abatement. Lastly, we updated our website this year to hopefully make this process as clear as possible. So if we could move on to the next slide. So this is a graphic that we created to create some clarity around there. Is a very robust due process that goes along with weed abatement. We don't just put people on the list overnight. This happens over a long period of time, and there is multiple steps. So I won't get into each of the steps, but what I wanted to show with this are there are multiple meetings, there are notifications, and as you can see, different deadlines based on weed abatement compliance and Santa Clara County WUI compliance. So the list that we are looking at tonight is a result of a year or more long process and multiple attempts to really help people comply, multiple notifications. So with that, I would like to introduce our new weed abatement manager, Garrick Ioselewski. I've been very nervous about saying your name. He's been working with the county under the same department, but on environmental protection, watershed protection since 2017. His professional experience is mostly in environmental compliance field. And prior to joining the weed abatement program, he worked as a management analyst in the county's watershed. He managed multiple inspection programs and keeps the county in compliance with statewide and regional stormwater permits and permit requirements. And he's been a pleasure to work with so far, very respondent and very easy to collaborate. And I think the priority that I hear is to help residents to comply. He has a BA in Environmental Studies from San Jose State and an MBA in Sustainable Enterprise from Dominican University of California. So with that, Garrick.
Red means it's on, yeah.
Good evening. My name is Garrick Yoselewski. I'm the Weed Abatement Manager for the County of Santa Clara and the Consumer and Environmental Protection Agency. Tonight is step 2 of a 3-step process. On November 19th, the Commission passed a resolution declaring weeds, brush, and rubbish a public nuisance. And the county has sent notices to property owners in Los Altos Hills on December 20th, 2024. Letting them know that they're going to be in the program and when they can come and contest their property being in the program. So tonight is an opportunity for those property owners to contest their property being a part of the weed abatement program. And tonight is also the Commission's time to make a decision of whether or not to approve the list that's in front of you for them to be in the weed abatement program for 2025. So we will begin inspections on these properties no earlier than April 30th, and those inspections can go up until October 31st. And then the third part of this process will happen on July 16th, when there will be another public hearing for those property owners to contest any fees that are applied to their property tax bills as a result of any inspections or enforcement actions that are taken during this year. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the Commission may have.
Any questions or comments for our change of an era to have someone new? We really welcome you here, and we appreciate this is an effort that we spend a lot of time of our year working on. So it's great to be working with someone that we're getting along so well with. And I love that staff has really changed the process for Los Altos Hills to really be supportive of residents to get them to comply, to where it's not as punitive. It's about really helping them participate in their community and get these things fixed. So any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I do have a question. First of all, welcome. I appreciate your work. I'm, in addition to being a commissioner, I'm a resident of the Hills, and this work is supremely important to the safety of our community. With that being said, my question is, are there any residences that are both on the weed abatement list and also on the Santa Clara County Fire District list?
That is a great question. I have not reviewed the Santa Clara County Fire list, so I don't have an answer to that question right now.
Okay.
I think I can respond to that. They're both referred and it's one list. So Santa Clara County Fire Department will refer their list, which you voted in June, and it's added to the weed abatement. They don't do, Santa Clara County Fire Department doesn't do the abatement or the enforcement. The weed abatement does.
Okay, so who does the inspection, just out of curiosity?
Both.
Both do inspection.
Weed
separately?
abatement does. So there's a number of different avenues that residents can get referred into the program.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I seem to be perpetually confused about this whole matter. I think what I'm trying to see, is there any way that we could expand our coverage of the Hills residences by combining these two efforts in such a way that they end up covering more properties?
So all residents are required to comply with weed abatement. So that does expand to everyone, excuse me.
But the issue is really the enforcement, which starts with inspection. Are we inspecting enough properties to know that in fact people are complying or not?
What do you think, Ryan?
There's no way to inspect all of
them. Yeah.
Yeah, see, this is where the gap is, I think. So I think somehow we got to figure, given the LA fires, it seems to be, it's upon us to really get the community organized around, not only just volunteer, but also enforced inspection and also, compliance.
Commissioner?
Maybe I can just suggest if there's another route there, because one of the properties on the list here is one that maybe I put on there, and it's because it's on a path, and I see it's awful every year, and so I, as a resident, walk around and I can see the backyard of an inappropriate house with all kinds of wooden rubbish sitting there, and so maybe that's part. Maybe we don't want to have a I don't know, gotcha kind of element here. The whole thought is how to encourage people to get stuff. But if we can expand the role of the professional inspectors by ourselves walking through our neighborhood and noting things that aren't in compliance.
Well, I think that's a very, very, very good idea, Commissioner. But the question is, is this backed up by ordinances and so forth? And that's where I'm gonna a little bit lost. So, thank you.
If I might comment, Commissioner Basigi, law enforcement can't catch every speeder. And so it's, it's kind of in that realm. Weed abatement has 3 inspectors. County Fire has engine companies that go out and look for defensible space. And even that is a third of the district per year. Citizens may report, and again, this is not, the focus is compliance, so it's not punishment. So the more eyes we have, and I think there's a greater awareness now, and so maybe that's why we see an elevated number of reportings. The good news is the district offers a solution. And so I have gone out and knocked on people's doors and shared with them the resources we have to help them get into compliance. And many are just unaware. So education, outreach, and the district's doing a great job at that.
I'm entirely in agreement with you regarding the district. My comments are not aimed at the district. My comments are aimed at essentially the 2 bodies that are from the county that are essentially doing the inspection and enforcement. So I'm just trying to figure out how can we expand the scope of this program.
Let's get more people hired by weed abatement.
I can also mention that when our inspectors are out in the field looking at all these properties on the list, they are also keeping their eyes peeled for other properties that could be an issue. So we do add properties to the program when we do see other issues in the field that are not already part of the list. We also do collect complaints from residents in the public. So we have a portal online where folks can report things to us. So we do encourage them to do that.
Jim, I also think that the expansion of our Firewise, the expansion of the Firewise communities gives another way for areas to sort of be reporting the problems that they can't really get to and get to join in. So it's a variety. I think it's going to be a shotgun of things.
I'm in agreement with that. I think we don't have the district doesn't have the jurisdiction regarding private properties. So we have to rely on bodies that have the jurisdiction and enforcement capability to actually go do that. So I think this is enough. I think enough said here. I just wanted to get the point across.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments here? Okay. Thank you very much. Any public comments?
Well, we didn't need to go to the actual public hearing to open the public
Okay.
hearing. Yeah.
Any comments on the report?
Protocol.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to item 8B, the public hearing. Okay, we've had the brief overview. I will now open the public hearing. The time is 7:54 p.m. Please note, if any members of the public would like to contest the inclusion of their name or parcel number in Exhibit A of Resolution 25-02 of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District Board of Commissioners to proceed with abatement of weed, brush, and/or rubbish, now is the time to do so. Any and all persons interested having any objections to said list or to any matter contained therein may appear and be heard. Are there any comments from the public?
No, I don't see any.
Oh, that's great. And but I know also want to thank the staff. The staff is very proactive in dealing with people long before this meeting who can take care of things beforehand. So I really appreciate the fact that there aren't a crowd of people here who don't understand the situation or are confused. It really shows that we've done this well at communicating. So thank you. Okay, in that case, seeing that, I will close the public hearing. at the time also being 7:55 p.m. Item 8C is to adopt Resolution 25-02 to proceed with the abatement of weeds, brush, and/or rubbish on the identified properties. Are there any clarifying questions from the commission? Seeing none. Okay, thank you. I will entertain a motion and a second.
Warren moves to adopt resolution 2502.
CG seconds it with enthusiasm.
Thank you for the enthusiastic motion and second. Let's see. Any other discussion from the commissioners on this? Not expecting any. Any public comment on this? Oh yeah, please, Toby.
So
Oh,
we're
okay.
talking about weeds and brush abatement, right?
Mhm.
And rubbish. What about trees that are, there's ones heritage oaks and
Mhm.
other things that are close to the house and, the limbs are like close to the roof and roof line and things like that. And do we do away with the tree itself or do we, just trim the limbs and still they're going to be close, yet they're going to be,
It's a
rather
great
close.
question. Let's ask her what does it cover and what does it not cover?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do also look at trees. We don't only look at the weeds and the brush and the rubbish. The trees, we are concerned when they have limbs that are starting to go under the eaves of a roof. And then also if they're getting too close to a chimney, one of our standards is for them not to be within 10 feet of a chimney or other heat source like that. So we do look at trees as well. We don't do away with a whole tree. We just ask that they're cleaned up and limbed up so that they're no longer a hazard. One thing I also forgot to mention is if tree branches are within 6 feet of the ground, then that's another issue that we're looking for to make sure that they're at least 6 feet off the ground.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Any other comments here? Before we I have a public comment here. Is the mic on?
Good, a technologist, wonderful. If it's appropriate, my name is Drew Anderson. I'm been in town since 1986, so you've seen me around. Plus the fact myself and a few others were the leaders of the first Firewise community in the town. And the reason I bring that up is I just heard a gentleman sitting next to me had told me that there's now 7. And we got underway 2019 originally when one of the city council emergency manager asked for volunteers if she could get a volunteer to participate in having a drill. And I raised my paw. I was chair of the emergency communications committee at that time. And I said, we're a one-way in and 40 homes out there. And so we did an emergency thing. And out of that, somehow magically we evolved into, as Denise can attest to, we evolved into being affiliated with the Firewise. We were the first Firewise community. And we actually, through some bumps and grinds, got recognized in 2022. And the rumor tonight is that the 7th one has just been, Hidden Villa has just been recognized. And so I want to bring to your attention that there's a lot of information that we could use some help with as far as not only publicizing the value of Firewise, we've got a lot of good participation amongst our 7 communities. And whatever we can do, if you can communicate with those of us who are volunteer leaders to, support what your concerns are. There's just been a lot of good participation by people, particularly with the insurance issues. People are very, it's upfront in their face. And now with the Los Angeles disaster, are really upfront in our face. So I think I'm making an appeal to, if you can kind of work with us, slowly shortening volunteers. We kind of wear out after a while. We could use some help. Okay. And thank you. And thank you for your good work. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments on this item for the resolution? I have one coming forward.
Hi, Dave Stewart, CERT, Firewise, help out with the fire district in a lot of ways. I think most people here know me. I have a question really about how the inspections are done, because my impression is that they're done as a streetwide front of the house inspection. And my observation is that immediately behind my house, there's a gully or a canyon, if you prefer, that is just completely overgrown. And it's the backyard of 10 different people's, but it's a perfect fire chase to come all the way up. crossing 20 houses. So I'd like you to address that if you could, how it's done.
Thank you. That is a good question. Yes, our inspections are all done from the public right of way. We don't really do any inspections on places that we can't see from a roadway unless somebody gives us consent, due to Fourth Amendment restrictions, right to privacy. And also, if there is a complaint that we receive about somebody's backyard and we can gain access through that property owner's consent, then we can do that inspection. But otherwise, it is all from the public right of way most of the time.
That's good. Thank you for that's a very specific answer. I think if people in fireworks communities do see things that they like to report, coming to us would be the way to do that. That's a question, I guess, to let us sort of determine if there's other ways that we could carry that forward into the compliance program. And we could deal with those neighbors in other ways without inspections and so forth. So I would say reporting to us would be the way to elevate beyond just the right of way inspections. That's to Dave. Any other public comments? Please.
There are two opinions about rototilling.
Rototilling.
And, twice a year, the, weeds grow and then they dry out in the summer. So after, watching all the recent spate of events in LA, started looking at it differently now. So what is the opinion of rototilling? Some I've heard reports where they say it's not good for the earth to till it like that, to get that. And some others say it's, necessary.
Let me rephrase that question, but in terms of complying, if there's overgrown weeds, is either rototilling or mowing sufficient? I don't think we specify which one of those is better. That I know that isn't coming from the open space committee, which I was on for many years. I'm very familiar with that issue about, are you turning up weeds when you rototill versus just mowing, which, some people think it's more or less effective, but we don't specify that. That argument is still out there. Either one will get you past compliance of having overgrown weeds.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
May I offer at least a positive note here, because I did mention one property that they did not comply and is on the list, but there's another one that was accessible from one of our pathways, so it's publicly available, but I can't expect the fire department to be walking all of our pathways. So I wrote the homeowner a note and attached my business card from the fire district, and I said, this could this could cost you some money if you don't take care of it. And they've taken care of it the last 2 years. So there's my one success story.
There you go. Any other public questions, comments?
I did similar thing by the way, my neighbor. So.
Okay, that is ready for a roll call.
Okay, this is a roll call to adopt resolution 2502 to proceed with the abatement of weeds, brush or rubbish growing on the identified properties. President Spreen.
Yes.
Commissioner Basigi.
Yes.
Commissioner Kadambi.
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald.
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Great, and the motion passes 6-0 with 1 absent.
Thank you. Now moving on to item 9, the fire chief report. This is the monthly fire chief report for November 2024. That's 9A. 9B is the monthly report for December 2024. 9C is the Station 8 report for November. And 9D is 2024 summary report for Fire Station 8. I'll let you proceed with all the reports sort of together. Fire Chief Karakau, thank you.
Good evening, President Spreen, commissioners, staff, and public. We'll just go through the first 2 items pretty quickly. And that's just because if I remember correctly, can't remember why we didn't report out in December, but if we look at November's report, there really isn't anything outstanding. There's nothing unusual. There was one item that had a dollar loss. We are working actively through our vendors. So we don't run our own reports. We actually have a consultant or a contractor who does this work for us because we want to make sure that we are objectively looking at the information. So there are some differences in the report as we're working through that process, so bear with us. And so again, this is the report for November. Again, for Commissioner who's new, there are code 3 calls, and then there are total calls. For our accreditation purposes, we look at code 3 calls. And so we call them out because we want to, for those calls that require lights and sirens to get there quickly, we are looking at our performance in the district. So you can see there are multiple units there, even those that are not assigned to the Los Altos Hills Fire District, County Fire District. And that's the regional approach that we have within our partnership with just, again, shared resources. I'm a little distracted right now because we have a second alarm fire working in which we had a rescue, somebody who was trapped. And then ultimately from there, we had a crew that was trapped. So when Chief Shoemate and Chief Glass were asked to leave in short order to make sure that, number one, they were able to get there and support the crews, but number two, to make sure the crews were fine and that we didn't have anything that was tragic for the community. This is some of the things that we do. We need to make sure that our code 3 calls and where we go and get there quickly to try to get the resources there is what we're looking at in these reports. So sorry about the distraction. That's why that's why they left in short order. And they're still working that fire. The second report, which is December's, again, not anything significant. We're still working through some changes, and I would anticipate that if not for January's report, definitely for February, you're going to see a different format because, again, we're working through what we want to be more ingestible for all of our communities. So you'll see up there just the total calls. Seems like that might be flipped. Are we looking at, okay, again, it's a little hard from here to look at, but there's nothing significant. Any questions before I move on to the Palo Alto report? Okay, the Palo Alto report we discovered has a flaw, and that flaw means that we need to go back and look at it. And that's primarily because Palo Alto Fire and Santa Clara County Fire are on 2 very different records management systems. And when we try to combine it, especially because we have some transitional staff in operations, there was some gaps in threading those 2 together. So what I'd like to do is bring this report back next month, make the correction and bring it back to the commission. Okay. So item D, which is just the fire chief's report. One of the things that we do for all of the counties, we're the op area coordinator. And so I'd like to address some things that have been discussed here with regard to LA and the LA County and the fires. So we took the responsibility with our partnership with County Communications as of January 1st of 2025 to be the Region 2 coordinator. And again, this is mutual aid, neighbor helping neighbor, really trying to get resources moved as quickly as possible to the area in which people are the most at risk. I, as the Region 2 coordinator, as soon as those fires started, got on a conference call with state assistant chiefs as well as the Cal OES fire rescue chief. And they were talking about winds at 70, 80 miles an hour sustained with gusts of 100. Just think for a second when we have 25-mile-an-hour gusts or 25-mile-an-hour winds. Again, you're standing next to a car that blows by you at 80 miles an hour. You're feeling that 80-mile-an-hour gust. So they were very, if you will, just the weather conditions they could do nothing about. And immediately they got on the horn and asked for help. And the help came. Region 2, through the coordination at County Communications, was able to push out 25 task force or strike teams, of which 3 came from this county. That's well over 450 firefighters, boots on the ground, headed to LA. The difference between what happened down there and where we were at with our wind event, we got the wetting rains. If you look outside, the grass is green. The brush has absorbed the moisture. The trees have absorbed the moisture. Typically, again, a lot of folks that are in this room that may have been, who have worked for County Fire, and all of your administrative staff at County Fire, we have all been out there. And what you're hearing in terms of brush abatement is, in the past, that was what really was the carrier of flames. So the reason why you don't take out all the trees is typically when a brush fire goes through, It'll go along the ground, you'll get a ground fire, and then if you're not limbing up, it can go up and create a fire in the tree. So if we can take care of the ground and the grass, if we can take care of the weeds and create a space where we get a chance to make the attack, then we can hold it and create, again, that fire break. You see the fire breaks within your community. What I will tell you, President Spring and Commissioner, your staff is doing an outstanding job. This is one of the communities that, just to your point, what you're saying is you're working as hard and as diligently as you can, given the ever increasing risk of these wildfires that really every single time we're like, it's unprecedented, it turns around and it becomes this unthinkable thing. So as we work through what we're trying to do at FireScope. So tomorrow I was supposed to go, because I sit on the board of directors for FireScope, which is executive leadership represented up and down the state, to look and see what the state can do, what Cal OES can do, is there legislation that can happen, what other things can we do to help get resources to the folks the communities that are in need immediately. They actually had to cancel the meeting because of another wind event that was predicted for LA. So this is a weird time. And as we work through the next meeting, which is now scheduled for February 5th and 6th, it's an all-day thing. And I'll go down there and I'll be able to report back potentially next month as we do sort of a review of what happened down in LA. That is the focus. That's part of the agenda for the FireScope Board of Directors. So I give you all that in sort of totality because the work your staff is doing, the work that you all are ingesting, is good work for the district. And I'm very proud of what you all do here. And I just want to thank you all for everything that you're doing to try to keep your community safe. So that's really the D part. That's the fire chief's report. We have a ton of things on our radar for next year. But for this last year, again, we deployed a lot of resources. We still, again, have resources down in the Palisades fire or fighting the Palisades fire or you know, just, again, they're doing mop up. And then from there, we'll just continue to work through, you know, everything from weed abatement to response. And our partners with CAL FIRE, with Palo Alto Fire, with Mountain View Fire, throughout the whole entire county is something that we really are proud of and we rely on. End of report.
Thank you very much for the report.
Okay.
And all your work. Any questions here from Commissioner? Seeing none. Seeing none, great. Any public comments or questions directed to me? Not seeing any.
None online.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Again, we're very honored to have the fire chief here present, especially during an event, but it is quite an honor. Thank you. Moving on to item, let's see, well, we've changed. We've moved item 10 to follow item 12. So we'll move on to item 11, which is the fiscal year 2025-26 draft budget presentation given to us by Finance Manager Morreale.
Okay, President Spring, members of the commission. Well, that's a very hard act to follow, the report from the fire chief. And Fire Chief Kirk, I hope that the fire staff are all safe in their activities. Well, it's a pleasure to present the budget for 25-26. As you may recall, in November, we had 2 public meetings on the budget. And the last time we met, we called this the preliminary. The last time we met, it was called the preliminary draft budget. This evening, we're calling it the draft because it's 1 meeting removed from the next meeting in February, after which we will push the budget off to the county pending the commission's direction and approval up to that point. Next slide, please. The actions tonight, there are actions this evening. We're essentially asking you to receive the draft budget memorandum report. Also authorize the staff to incorporate any changes that we might receive from the county between now and the next meeting that may come in just administratively from the county. The county typically makes adjustments to revenue and or any ancillary charges. They're not large in terms of expenditures. They're not large dollar amounts. Revenues can be adjusted modestly. We don't expect additional revenue adjustments, but they could potentially come in. Also, we're asking the commission to authorize staff to submit Exhibit A to the County Office of Budget and Analysis. And the Exhibit A that goes this evening will go to them preliminarily as well. And the county asks that we send it to them on January 31st so they can start their process. But rest assured that this commission has the ability to modify this budget up through February 21st, which will be, the next meeting, which is February, I believe, is it the 21st, Corey, the next meeting? 18th. That is the next meeting where you can actually make modifications to this draft budget. And also, we're excited that this evening you are receiving the draft budget narrative and the service area budgets. We're not asking that the narrative be approved at this session. We understand it's a large document. You just received it on Friday, so you can take your time reading it. But the narrative is presented for your reading pleasure, as well as the service area budgets as well. And next slide, please. So what is the purpose of tonight? Really tonight, I want to focus on what's changed since November 19th. On November 19th, we had the presentation of the full-blown budget. But tonight we're going to ask the question, what's modified since the 19th? We'll talk about county updates because there have been some county updates. Much to the theme that the fire chief just spoke to, we're going to talk about the impact on the recent events in Southern California and how it impact this latest iteration that you are receiving. We have made modifications to the budget since the preliminary, and they're really targeted on the impact on us that Southern California has had. We'll talk about items added or adjusted, items deferred, and then just some fiscal conclusions as well. And next slide, please. There are several key documents in your packet, and these documents are foundational to the budget. From the top left to the bottom right, you have the budget narrative. You have the budget memo report, which was the staff report. The narrative really is the entire discussion of the budget, if you will. The key sections of the narrative include the budget message, which is a message that's put forth by the general manager and finance. You'll have on page 11, the budget overview. It provides a top level overview of the budget. And then starting on page 13, fiscal highlights. Again, it's about a 41-page document, but it is the foundation of the budget, and it tries to clarify the numbers, if you will. The budget staff memorandum tonight is essentially a summary of the narrative in 2 or 3 pages. You'll also see Exhibit A, which is the format which the county likes to receive. And then when the county receives the Exhibit A, it is nothing other than a line item budget. They essentially want to know the account numbers, they want to know the line item description, and they want to know the amount. And so that's the format that we give them, and they put into their system in the county, along with many other departmental and divisional groups as well. And also in addendum format, we attach the service area budgets as well, and that's included in your packet as well. We're very proud of the service area budgets because we are quickly moving towards the narrative becoming service area based, not only in terms of the theme, but also in terms of how the numbers are allocated amongst groups. But the service area budgets start pointing in that direction, and it does reconcile in full to what's in the narrative as well. So those are the key foundational documents that you have as well. I will mention what's not on here is the strategic plan. And the strategic plan really is the baseline of everything. We could not have created the budget without the strategic plan. Next slide, please. Our focus hasn't changed, even though you'll see number changes tonight. Our focus haven't changed. We mentioned last time that what's really driving this budget this year, we're proposing the creation of a new fund, and I'll get into that a bit more, but we discussed it last time. I-280 looms large in this. That fuel-based project, I-280 looms large in this. You'll see it's a large dollar amount, but it's also significant in terms of fire safety. And also this budget for the first time proposes putting money aside and planning for the possibility of a new fire facility. So that has not changed as well. We put dollars into professional services and dollars into staff development, but we have not forgotten the multitude of very good programs that we have already. The chipping programs, the evacuation routes, the HIZ programs, the outreach, community education, those are still in there. but the darker sections of this slide indicate where you'll see a lot of the dollar changes that occurred relative to last year. So really didn't change the focus, but we remained consistent with that focus that we communicated last time. Next slide, please. In terms of our fiscal overview, again, most of the dollars, predominantly most of the dollars in this budget goes towards life and property safety. So you can see if you add up fire services, life and safety projects, general operations, 73% of every dollar we spend goes directly into life and property safety. That has not changed either. These percentages did not change from last time. They stayed essentially the same, even with the dollar changes that we made. From an administration standpoint, we have about 27%. And as I mentioned in the past, we really don't allocate salary dollars to the life and property per se in our budget. But if we would do that, you would see that I would say that we're somewhere in the 85 to 90% range of every dollar going towards life and property safety. The next slide, please. So what has changed since 11/19? What you'll see is we put in some dollar amounts that have two impacts. We want to plan more for the unknowns. And with Southern California fires coming up and over the last 2 to 3 weeks, we really paused. The general manager and I and the rest of the team paused. And we said, we have to plan for what is unexpected even more. Will we get more requests from the community to do more in various areas? And really allow the budget to be flexible enough to shift those dollars when needed to the areas needed. So these two things, Southern California fires, which prompted us to even plan more for unknowns, really relates to the reasons why we modified the budget, as I'll show you in a second. Next slide, please. Okay, so now let's talk about what's changed since 11/19. The county change was expected. The county came back with their updated revenue estimates. And as you might expect, this community has very strong property tax. And again, they came back and they revised their 11/19 estimates to add another $390,000 to our revenue base. So with that, if you look at your property tax, special district property tax that comes in year to year and interest income and compare it to the prior year budget, we're looking at about a 7.5% change. Now, what's interesting is I listed on here the county forecast of property tax relative to their most recent estimates. So they are expecting a moderation. The county is very conservative, as we are in our budget estimates. They're expecting somewhat of a moderation, and they're expecting about a 2.5% growth current estimate to 25-26. It may come in bigger, more than that. We think it may, but of course, we always go with the county estimates because that's coming right out of the county assessor's office. And these are numbers that we really believe in and hold to. So what you'll see relative to 11/19 is revenue increased by $390,180. And on your next slide, you'll see how the dollars have changed. We actually went down in terms of dollars, and I'll explain that in a bit. Our emphasis did not change. On the very left-hand bottom, you'll see that on 11/19, we said that 72% of all expenditures were related to life and property safety. With the changes we made, it actually tweaked to about 73%. But in general, if you look at the total change between the two versions, we went down by $146,630. And I'll explain why that change happened. So we went from 22.278 to 22.131 million in terms of our expenditure side of the equation. Next slide. This is what changed. I already mentioned that revenue went up by $390,000. And I mentioned that expenditures went down by $146,000. If you look at the arrows here, these are the changes that we introduced into the budget, into the version that you have this evening. First and foremost, we added, in discussion with Eugenia and on the IHFR projects and programs, we added $175,000 for a roadside grass mitigation project. As you know, the town does roadside grass mitigation. But we're putting forward a pilot program to work with the town and even supplement the roadside grass mitigation. So we believe this, we paused and we said, this is something we think that we may be able to do even more beyond what we're doing. So we put $175,000 into there. We also, at the last meeting, asked that the commission approve the addition of 2 staff members. We want to take a wait and see approach on that at this point in time. We want to wait and see what happens this year. And we want to wait and to see what happens in terms of the effect and impact of the Southern California fires in terms of money that needs to go into other areas, either on a contract basis or a professional services basis as well. So we still believe the staffing requests was a good and valid request, but we want to pause and wait to see for what happens this past year. We believe that the next 12 to 18 months will be a good assessment period for that. So we've taken that request for 2 new positions out at this time to give this budget more flexibility. We also bolstered even more our professional services contingency. And I'm sorry, PERS there means personnel. So I should have mentioned that on that last one. And in both finance and IT, in terms of technology enhancements, and also in general, to give the general manager the ability and more professional services dollars to allocate to various areas as they're needed and as they arise. So that's the shift. Deferring those staffing requests and enhancing professional services, enhancing contract services, and enhancing roadside grass mitigation along with all other programs. That, in essence, accounts for the total change in this budget that you see between 11-19 and this one this evening.
Oh, I'm encouraged commissioners, if you have any questions, you're welcome to interrupt and ask during the presentation.
Yes, and this might be a good time to pause because this slide, in essence, shows you exactly how the dollar.
Commissioner Basigi and I, as part of the ad hoc budget committee, have already had a look at this, but I want to make sure questions are able to be asked.
May I ask?
Jim, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you had a $175,000 contingency plan. Is that the one is that the line item that's now shown as the roadside grass mitigation?
Yes, we actually, in the service area budget for IHFR, we placed it under contingency, but the intent there is to use that portion of contingency. And the contingency is larger than that, but that portion potentially will go into the roadside mitigation. And we're also proposing it as a pilot. And so that, in essence, is why we put it on that particular line item.
So what is the size of total contingency fund that you have?
I believe we're at $600,000 in projects and programs. I believe that's the amount. And Corey, you can correct me if I'm wrong there. But yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell if this is a comment or a question, but by the way, the narrative has always been a lot of work, and I've always appreciated it. And this is one more year where I continue to do that. This is the first time that I recall seeing you presenting the budget from different formats like this. And my question about the county budget format is, it seems like it's extra work, and you're putting it into particular categories that fit the county. Is that because our budget rolls up into a county number, or is it just to make it easier for the county to assess what we're doing if we use kind of their language?
It's the latter. We want to translate our budget into their language. They use an SAP system, and which is, as you know, is a very robust system that accounts for the many divisions and employees that they have. And the Exhibit A, which we give them, translate our general ledger number to theirs. It basically translates from our number to theirs. And so that's what you're seeing. When you look at the bold number on the very left, that's what the county recognize within their system. The numbers on the right, the second column, are our sub numbers that we use for internal use. As you know, we use QuickBooks here, and we'll be migrating to the advanced portion of QuickBooks, but the county uses SAP. And so when they get it, they will translate this into their system along with many other divisions that they have.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And now we did present 2 Exhibit A's as well this time. For the benefit of the community and the commission, we gave you a comparative Exhibit A that gives you 3 to 4 years of comparison, should you want to look at that. The county doesn't ask for that. We give them one column. But for your benefit, we wanted to give you 2 or 3 years of comparison so you could look side by side and kind of see what's happening over time.
Any other comments, questions?
To jump in just real quick, so on this page, you can see the projects and programs contingency, 775.
So yes, that's the 600,000 plus the 175.
It rolls
yeah.
it, rolled it up.
Right. Okay. Any comments or questions?
I'm
Please.
rather new, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to find out if there's room for, based on the recent events in Southern California, is there room to kind of add something like storing water, like your gray water, or, the roof runoff, have like tanks in the houses and things like that. So that way, or in the swimming pool, maybe, use people with pools, for instance, if there were like things that could be retrofitted and things like that. Is there room to be even more prepared? So we, water being a scarce resource, and also to take the burden off, because each fire truck can only put out this much fire, right? In the sense, and we don't have a never-ending stream of fire trucks.
Right.
So is there room in the budget to also, since I'm new, it's
absolutely.
all
No, please.
sounding a little,
No.
but gray water, store.
Well, I think I would translate that question. Maybe let me see if I can move it into, is there room to do other experimental projects?
Right.
That's a second question coming from that is, what do you do about water supplies? And we've been trying to buy a new water tender, and it's still in the purchasing project, which would allow a big giant trunk full of water to be taken where it's needed to go. So the question is, does the general manager feel, and don't let me misinterpret your question, but I think it might be a similar question. Is there room in here for you to take on new studies, new project ideas, new experiments with staff, if someone comes up with an idea of that sort?
Well, I'll let Russ respond to that too, but that's where our contingencies are built in. So for each of the set of programs, we have a fair amount of contingencies. And that's where, when, for example, the budget was pretty well put together, but then when we had the flashy fuels discussion with the integrated hazardous fuel reduction team, the question was, well, let's do it, let's try it. And then that's when we went into the contingencies, bolstered that, and then have that as a composite for experimental or a pilot, as we call them, projects.
Thank you.
But the idea is we have to get into all kinds of considerations about how it fits in our strategic plan. Is it within our jurisdiction? Is it a topic that another agency is better suited to do versus the district that's basically prevention, protection, and resiliency? So there's a lot of other questions that go into it, but we try to build the budget with the flexibility to have the contingencies.
That's wonderful. That's, thinking really
Because we
ahead.
know, and that's what that graph shows, is we have to be flexible.
Right.
And because we are small and we do have a very efficient and effective method of operation, we have seen that we can be very nimble when that time comes and those good ideas occur.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank
You wanna
you.
proceed? Or
Next
you-
slide.
Yep.
Oh, yes. Next slide, please. Okay. The other change in this version of the budget, which is significant, but in line with the direction that we laid out last time, is what we're proposing in terms of transfers. Last time on November 19th, we proposed transferring $18.8 million into this newly created fund. And we'll talk about that fund in a minute. We're increasing those numbers of transfers. We had this whole discussion about, capital fund, what is that? And you'll see in a minute that we're proposing to call that fund a community infrastructure and major project fund. And we want that fund to hold exactly what it sounds like: infrastructure and major significant projects. And so what we're proposing is that we enhance the transfer dollars to include everything that we've identified in this budget of that nature. In particular, the fire facility, which we mentioned last time, which is seeding this fund with the potential construction dollars for a fire facility of $15 million. The fire facility assessment, again, consistent with the last reporting, of $715,000. What we did this time is we said, let's put capital and fixed assets in there. Let's make this a fund that holds capital, infrastructure, and major projects, and it holds all three. And we'll be working with the OBA and we'll be working with Aaron in defining, a definition for that fund, but that's the intent here. The intent is that it can handle all three things very well, capital, major infrastructure, and community projects. We're also proposing this time that we put in the I-280 contingency allocation. Out of that $600,000, we had identified $275,000 for I-280. We associate it with I-280. We'll put it in here. And for the programmatic EIR program of $250,000. And the logic there is the impetus for the PEIR really was I-280. So we haven't increased allocations, but we're shifting what we're putting into this new proposed fund by this additional amount. So now this is proposing 19.668 million going into that fund versus 18.815 million going into this fund. So that is also a change. So again, revenues changed, expenditures changed modestly, but importantly for more flexibility. And the transfer has been modified to include everything that we've identified as capital, everything that we identified associated with the fire facility, everything that we've identified as associated with I-280. Those three things we're recommending go into this new fund.
Question, is it fair to say that the logic behind that is such that the current fund, I guess the current general fund, would therefore illustrate on an ongoing basis much more of the standard operating process as opposed to these, and not be sullied by these things that are huge one year and down another year and up another year, so we can sort of compare our general fund usage from year to year?
That's exactly it. We want to put into this fund those items that are non-routine, that are non-routine, that are major and significant, maybe one time or multi-year one time, so that your general fund you can depend upon as being consistent, and you can start monitoring and tracking it that way. In fact, we'll see in a minute that it's actually worked for this first year in terms of presentation. You'll see in a second when we show you the two funds side by side that it actually works. Now, having said that, for the benefit of the commission, the county has to approve this model. They have to approve this structure. But up to this point, they've acknowledged that that's our direction. We've received from OBA a gentle nod of the head that this seems appropriate for us. But ultimately, the county will decide ultimately on the definition of the fund and the ultimate model. But we feel confident with the OBA's guidance and the county's guidance, we can get there. Okay. Next slide, please. So this is what it looks like, very much to President Spring's question. So if you look at this chart, you can see now the general fund, which we're now referring to, our one fund that we have now, we're going to now classically call, and it is by definition the general fund because it's our only operating fund. But when there is one operating fund, it is classically called the general fund, and we will refer to it now as that. And this new fund, which we're proposing, is Community Infrastructure and Major Projects Fund. As you can see now, the total budget is $22.131 million. But what you can see if you look at the use of fund balance, which means what happens when you take revenues and offset that with your expenditures, you can see that the general fund now, you can see clearly is balanced. It has $402,420, which means it is using the revenue that it has for its funding source, and it's doing it appropriately. It's not going negative. And that's a nice thing to see. From this point forward, you should be able to see that fund, if there's an intentional and a deliberate move to go negative, we'll explain why. But this year, it is positive, which is nice to know that operating on an operating basis is positive. You can see in the Community Infrastructure Fund, well, of course, it's a massive amount of resources being used, but appropriately because it's going towards these very large projects. So in total, what you have here in this budget now is revenues of $18.215 million, expenditures of $22.131 million, and use of funds of $3.915 million. The general fund is positive by $402,000, and the infrastructure fund, which I will call in short the infrastructure fund or projects fund, 4.3 million use of dollars. What it ends up with at the end of the year, at the end of 25-26, is magically that 15.35 million, which happens to be the dollars that in the future potentially could be used for the fire facility. So I'll pause here because again, new model, new idea. It will take, further conversation with the county, but yes, it is a different year in that regard. But this was not different from 11-19, just the dollars were, and the name of the fund is different.
Any comments, questions? Oh, sure.
Yes, thank you very much. This is very, very impressive and very nicely done. Appreciate the time you put into this.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so if we look at how our fund balances look like now with this new model, with the proposed new model, it also starts to work very, very nicely. You may recall, if you look at prior budgets, that we would be showing an unassigned fund balance. In other words, unreserved, uncommitted fund balance, which is very large, if you will. Now, when we do this, what you see is that we've properly allocated to uses. So the unassigned fund balance at the end of 25-26 is 8.8 million. The infrastructure assigned balance would be 15.35 million. And the committed fund balances would be 18.256 million. Let me remind the commission that the committed fund balances are actually what they sound like. They're committed and obligated. And what they represent past commitments of dollars that this commission has put into the budget for specific purposes, many of them related to the hydrants, related to emergency funds that are needed, operational funds that are needed in emergencies. But at the same time, these commitments also include the fire trucks that were obligated by contract with Central Fire. So those are real commitments, which the county also recognizes as commitments. So that's what these are the balances that we project will be reflected in the budget at the end, in the financials at the end of 25-26, if the budget is 100% accurate, which it never is, but if it's 100% accurate, this is what we would project it to be. And you can see the green reflects the unassigned, the gray, the infrastructure assigned, and the committed is in the blue, the blue tone. And next slide, please. Okay, so I will pause at this point because I thought it might be fair to remind everyone on the commission. I went through a lot of numbers last time, and I talked about last time how the budget changed from last year. If you don't mind, if you would indulge me, I'll also recap how this budget is different than last year's budget, just for the benefit of the full commission and the community, because it's been about a month and a half or so since we talked about it. So what you're seeing here now is it's answering the question, how did the budget change from last year's budget, fiscal year 24-25? And these are how the numbers evolve. This budget has an additional $1.75 million for year 2 of the I-280 project. That in total is a three and a half year project. That's approximates $6 million. This is year 2 that you're seeing. And that year 2 is $2.7 million. And last year it was 1. So that's a change from year to year. This also has an additional $365,000 for an assessment of the potential of a new fire facility. We have a total allocation of $715,000. That's $365,000 over what was placed in the budget last year. It has the $175,000 for the roadside grass mitigation program that I just spoke about. You'll see to the right now, we're now identifying these dollars by fund. So the first 2 are in the project fund. The roadside grass mitigation is in the general fund under IHFR. And the more and more we get into this model in future years, the more we'll speak like this. Which fund is it coming out of and which service area is it coming out of? Next slide, please. We also put in an additional $150,000 for the programmatic EIR program. When we worked with Eugenia and we received updated costing on that program, it went up by $150,000 over the prior year. So that's a change. We put $25,800 in here for the purchase of in-house laser jet printers. You might be surprised that we really don't have printers. And since we're all remote, we thought we might need 2 to 4 printers. So we put in some money here for some laser jets to be in the in-home offices. But there also are some items that are less than last year. One is the fire prevention artificial intelligence of $250,000. We had it last year. It's subject to roll forward with the county, but we did not rebudget it. So if the county rolls it forward, we will retain it, but it's not in the allocations that you see. We also don't have the vehicles, which we just purchased. So this budget is reduced by the fact that we do no longer have those allocations in this budget. Okay, next slide, please. And by the way, those were all identified as one-time changes or one-time requests. Now we're going on to ongoing requests, and this is how we communicate to the county as well. They want us to identify our allocations as either one-time or ongoing. In terms of ongoing requests, the fire contract went up by the prescribed 5% COLA. That's $369,170. We increased the project and programs contingency by $275,000, which you might recognize as the portion that we allocated to I-280. If you just take existing salaries, again, these are not with new positions, the existing salaries, COLAs year to year, and also the fact that for the first time, this budget now budgets full complement of full staffing. There's no half-year staffing. It's everybody, it assumes everybody's hired. That's $208,000 over the prior year. We also added an additional $130,000 under general professional service contingencies, which the general manager can allocate to various areas depending upon emerging needs that come up as well. So that's a change from year to year. Next slide, please. If you look at all of the projects and programs, and this is outside of I-280, in general, if you look at all of them, and there's several, there's chipping, there's HIZ, there's evacuation routes, there's the outreach, there's community education. We add them all up, they were adjusted by about $157,000. So we further enhanced, if you will, the projects and programs as well. We added $98,000 to Palo Alto Station 8 funding for an additional month of high fire season funding. We increased temporary employee services again as a contingency measure. So the general manager has the ability to hire additional temporary employees should she need to by $98,000. We added $60,000 for the potential of a Starlink commercial satellite system. And we added $54,000 with the anticipation, with all these major projects going on, increased county legal fees and increased professional service contingencies within personnel. So, and we get such a great value from the county. It's amazing that we get this value for that dollar amount, quite honestly. And that is not just county legal, but I believe it's also administration for county finance as well, I believe.
I think you mean legal projects, not regal projects.
Yes, legal projects. You're correct.
Yeah.
And yes, legal projects. Thank you. And next slide, please. Lastly, we put more money into training for all staff, an additional $41,000. It works out to amount of about $4,000, per month that we have to allocate on staff training for all our 16 bodies that we have at this point in time. And we feel that's a good amount so we can make sure everyone's certified, trained, goes to the seminars and training that they need to be on the ready. We added $21,000 in terms of county operating fees as an amount which we get from them. And we also moderated the emergency access roads line item by $87,000. And next slide. So I know that's a lot, but in general, all those numbers combined, if you were to go back to last year's numbers, represents the change from year to year between these two budgets. I'll also remind the commission that what you're not seeing in the budget is what the county rolls forward from year to year. And right now, the County Office of Budget Analysis has identified that they have rolled forward dollars for the fire trucks that are under contract and not yet paid, but those will be added on as the county rolls them forward subsequent. But they are not in your line items intentionally because we did not want to make the year-to-year comparison really chaotic. But they are there and approved by the county. So with that, the next slide. This is the conclusions that hit us as we put this budget together. We are in a position of fiscal strength. We have a quite a significant fund balance, and at the same time, one that's really going to help us pursue these initiatives and make sure the community stays and remains safe. We can comfortably maintain current service levels. That's very clear when you look at the operating fund as well. But as we look at future initiatives and we look at Southern California, there are unknowns out there, and that's compelled us to reach several conclusions. We want to manage our reserves to make sure we can fund material infrastructure improvements in the future. We want to carefully monitor fixed operational costs to anticipate what will the impact of Southern California be in the next year, 2, 3 years. So we added flexibility to it. What's the impact on the insurance industry and claims losses? How will that affect not only us as a district, but affect how the community reacts to everything that we do? We are built flexibility into the budget to allow for economic unknowns. Santa Clara County does extremely well economically, but there have been downturns. We don't know when those downturns could happen, but they may, and we want to be ready for that. We also want to make sure that as we plan for a new facility in the future, that we also allow for the ability to fund not only the facility, but to fund its staffing if it should come to that, and to allow for the ebb and flow of large-scale projects. So in essence, this is where we have landed, if you will, on this budget that you have this evening. And with the next slide, I might remind the commission what the dates are. We are at January 21st. We would be submitting a preliminary draft to the OBA. Actually, I believe it's now January 31st, so we'll submit that to them. Our next meeting with this commission will be on February 18th. At that point, we'd be asking the commission to approve the narrative and to approve the budget. The narrative, I'm not sure we'll actually approve at that time, but the budget for sure. The narrative, I believe, ultimately would be approved in June. We go to the Board of Supervisors workshops in May, between May 12th and May 14th. And we just received an update today from the county that the budget hearings have been modified to take place between June 9th through 10th and the 12th. And then our final budget adoption meeting would be on the 24th. So that's where we are, and we're available for any questions. And I do want to thank Corey, I want to thank Serena, all the service area managers, just for allowing us to get to where we are right now, and the county OBA, because we've had several discussions with them on this process, and we will be meeting with them most likely next week on this very presentation we're giving to you this evening.
Great. Thank you so much. Any other final comments from commission or any questions at all? Yeah. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Thank you for that presentation. Wow, that was a lot to get through. I mean, in a good way. And it was very thorough. But, you know, if you could put the slide 20 back up. When you talked about the EIR, it sparked my thinking, and that was environmental impact reviews. And you added the cost for that of $750.
The total on that is $350,000.
But the thing about it isn't so much the cost, so much as the time. And what I wondered in terms of the strategy in your slide here, number 20, is to say, and in terms of our being, again, nimble about responses, in the wake of these Southern California fires, if it's possible that there is an enhanced or speeded up EIR process, which could often be your limiting, your bottleneck for fuel reduction kinds of projects, I think we'd want to make sure that we were able to respond to that. And so I just wanted to prompt your thinking on that.
Comment on that? Or?
It's a nice point. I think it's conceivable that there could be new legislation to reform the CEQA process for fuel reduction work. It's a relatively new area in CEQA law of how those projects are treated, and it's a developing area. So it's possible that there would be legislation in the coming years. And yeah, I guess I'd leave it at that. I think the staff has presented at different points on the benefits of an EIR versus other approaches, but I'm not aware right now of new legislation on it, but it could come in the future.
Well, it's all late breaking in. We're responding to things we heard in the last couple of days and speculating out loud here.
Questions over here? Anything? Okay, great. I guess, well, any public comments? I assume there'll be one here. Or questions directed to me?
Could I ask you to put up the comparative slide that shows the estimated actual, the budget for this year and the budget for next year?
You know which slide that is, Corey? Does that make one of the slideshow slides?
Yeah, it's the standard one the district has used for many years. I just think it'll make it easier for the commissioners to understand what I'm trying to say.
That one?
No, go back to the comparative one. I think you did have it up, didn't you?
It does have estimated. Do you want the exhibit A?
I want the one that has all the accounts. Did you put it?
Oh, is the accounts?
Thank you.
Do you have it? No, let's see here. You're talking about one of the slides that he just showed, Alan, or you do want a different slide?
It's in the packet.
In the packet, I see,
think
okay.
it's the one that's the easiest for everybody to look at. This is a summary of that information. It is helpful, but it also contains the breakout into the general fund, into the project fund. So it's a little harder to understand. That one. Now, if you could enlarge it, please. And if you could go down towards the bottom where you should have the totals, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see the headings.
Can you reset the clock, Corey, as well?
Thank you. If you don't mind, could I walk up because I can't read the numbers from where I'm standing?
Sure. Yeah, of course. Or you want to see it from there? You can see it right there.
Okay. Thank you very much. What I'd like to point out is if you look down at the net change in fund balance, and the column that shows 2,134,000. That was the expected, that's the budget for this year. The district expected to need to consume out of its reserves $2,134,000. And then the next column over is the current estimated actual. And you can see that shows that the district now thinks it's going to have $2,187,000 surplus. The difference between those two numbers is $4 million. Part of the difference is due to the change in revenue forecast. The revenue forecast was much too low. And this revenue forecast is based upon the actuals. So that's part of the difference. The part that's paid to the fire department is exactly on to the penny. So that's not a part of the difference. The lion's share of the difference is what the district intended to spend on projects and what it's now actually going to spend, thinks it's going to spend on project. But if you actually, and that's why I made the comment earlier today about the expenditures to date. If you look at the project expenditures to date, the district's halfway through the year has only spent 13% of what it anticipated spending. And what it anticipated spending for projects was thank you very much. $3,283,000, and we're only at 13% of that number. Well, actually, you actually highlighted the wrong number. The number is the 4,500,000. That's what the district anticipated. That was the budget, right? We're only at 13% halfway through the year. So the point I'm trying to make is twofold. And you know, I've been up here many times over the years. If you go back the last 3 years, we haven't been within $4 million of what the budget has shown in any one of the last 4 years. And what I'm trying to tell you now is, I believe this is another example of our not being close to what the budget is going to actually turn out to be. So it's a very conservative budget. District has $45 million, so I certainly can be conservative, but the district spends an immense amount of time working on these budgets to not get within $4 million of the number that it anticipates spending. I'd like to follow up on the comment that
you need to finish up. You're getting close to your time.
Thank you. Could I just finish on this?
Quick comment, yeah.
Thank you. On Commissioner Tyson's comment about the PEIR, I was surprised that the PEIR was going to increase in price. And so I asked how much it cost for the CEQA work that's needed to be done, to have done all the work we've done to date. And the answer is nothing, because it turns out it's an exemption. The work that we've been doing is an exempt. All they do is file a form that says this is an exemption. So I raised the question, why are we going to spend $375,000 and take all the time to do it when this type of work apparently is exempt? So I would appreciate it if you guys would follow up on that.
Okay.
So thank you very much. And I appreciate the changes that were made to the budget. I think those were good changes. I still question the need for the capital fund, but because I think it adds a lot of confusion. But anyways, good luck with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any other public comments?
I don't see any.
Seeing none. All right. In that case, we will move on to, let's see, item 11. See, that's 11. I will now entertain a motion to authorize staff to incorporate any revisions to revenues and expenditures made by OBA after tonight's meeting into the fiscal year 26 draft budget, and to authorize staff to submit the fiscal year 26 draft budget to OBA by January 31st, 2025. With the commissioner making the motion and the commissioner seconding the motion, please state your names.
Tyson moves approval of items 11B and C as stated a minute ago.
Mm-hmm. Anyone want a second?
McDonald seconds.
McDonald seconds. Thank you. Items open for discussion. Any commission discussion on this? I think it's pretty straightforward. Okay. Any public comment on this? Seeing none. Let's have a roll call.
President Spreen?
Yes.
Commissioner Basigi?
Yes.
Commissioner Kadambi?
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
All right, and the motion passes 6-0 with 1 absent.
Great. And thank you to everyone involved. I know it's a lot of hours to even get to this point, and your work is just beginning as well. So this is not, we can't rest easy yet. So thank you for everything. Moving on to item 12, receiving a report on the I-280 hazardous fuel reduction project planning. Commissioner Warren's doing this one, I think.
Actually, Commissioner McDonald's going to take the lead tonight.
I'm going to give it a good old college try. First, I just wanted to quickly thank everybody on the team who is working to make this a reality. This is very dear and important to me. And as we're all aware, the firestorms in Los Angeles has affected me personally. My family's from there. Unfortunately, my parents are up here now, but my childhood was lost in the Palisades. My parents' homes, their churches, their schools, my grandparents' homes, my grandmother's stores. I remember my grandma rushing up. She knew all the back alleyways, and she'd rush up to the store and put as many of the clothes in her car as she could and get them out of there so the smoke wouldn't ruin more of the fire. So again, this is just a very important project for me. it's important that we're saving the lives and property of the people that we love and the town that we care so much about. So thank you all very much. Now on to the okay.
What we did.
Oh, no. Okay. So originally we had the idea of selecting one company, one engineering firm for an RFP. And we thought if we could get a large company that could do both the road clearing and possibly building the fire station, it would save us a lot of steps further down the road. But as we had 4 companies come to us and to request to submit proposals, they asked for a 2-week extension, which we agreed to. But then we decided that it might be better to bifurcate this process and allow more companies,
More vendors.
more vendors, thank you, to join in, and we possibly get a better choice.
Could I interrupt?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that in the staff memorandum report, we did look at pursuing that bifurcation, but then have had good results that we are going with the same RSFOQ.
Oh,
so
perfect.
Won't be bifurcated.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to pass it over to Mark.
Yeah. So we,
All right.
Thanks for your patience, everyone.
Yeah.
We did extend the time by
Yeah.
14 days, but no need to bifurcate the RSFOQ. So we're back on track.
Great. Yeah. So the subcommittee met, we talked with staff.
Right.
We put this, out, into the system right before the holidays, and a number of vendors came back and said, hey, we're very interested, but we're going to need some more time because of the holidays and with their questions. We got together, we discussed the issue, and we decided that, that having the right firm work with us is more important than rushing the project. And so we decided to, push it out 2 weeks, which means that we won't actually potentially, ratify an agreement until the March commission meeting. But for the scope and scale of this project and what we're looking for the right firm to be our partner for some significant activities here in the future, we figured that, that was an easy trade-off to get the right partner for this project.
Good.
All right.
You're the
Excellent.
last.
Good. Any
All
comments,
right.
questions?
Any
Yeah.
comments from staff on the 280 project?
No, I think that does it well.
Any public comments on? I think we have one here.
Well, I thought you were going to go in the right direction, but apparently you're not. As I mentioned earlier, I don't see any similarity between a tree trimming project and designing a state-of-the-art fire station, but you've put both of those things into one common project. I think releasing the request for proposal on December 19th certainly was a poor decision. Everyone goes on vacation on December 19th and doesn't come back till after the New Year's. And so I'm not surprised that the project was delayed and more time is being necessary. But I also want to tell you that the project has changed quite considerably from when you initially proposed it, in the sense that the revisions and the explanations and the answers that were provided basically are saying you want this contract to cover the design, architecture, design, and engineering of a new fire station. And that wasn't what was originally talked about. It was originally talked about the feasibility of using the site and maybe some preliminary conceptual type of designs. So the scope of this project has changed quite considerably from what was originally intended. And if you look at the responses, the very few that you've come in, none of the organizations, well, I shouldn't say none, at least the person who did respond implied that they're going to need a team, that they don't have the capabilities of doing it themselves, that they're going to have to go out and solicit subcontractors to be able to meet all the requirements that you've put into this document. And it seems to me you're not getting the best of both worlds. You're getting maybe some combination of maybe a good one on one part of the project and not so good one on the other. So I really was hopeful when you said that you're going to bifurcate the project, that would be the way that you go, because I really think that's the appropriate way to go. As I said previously, I think it's very premature to talk about design of a fire station when you don't even know what the requirements are for the fire station. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Seeing
See
none?
none? No.
Is there any more?
No.
Okay.
None.
Okay. Thank you for the report. Moving on now to jumping back to item 10, the district fire hydrant projects. Item 10A is to receive an update on the claim for property damages by the district due to the Altamont Black Mountain hydrant strike. General Manager Logan, could you please provide that report?
Yes, thank you. As you recall, there was an Altamont Black Mountain hydrant strike, which occurred on January 12th of 2023, which was a while back. And that was the second strike at that hydrant. Just wanted to report that the claim was fully settled on December 27th, 2024, in the amount of $6,800. And that amount makes the district whole for the repair of the hydrant, which includes replacement of the break-off check valve components and installation of the hydrant. And the claim is not inclusive of the additional bollards that were installed due to multiple hydrant strikes at this location. So we were able to reclaim the full amount of the damages, but the extra remedial steps that we took for the bollards would be on the district to pay for those. So that's the report on that. I would like to thank very much County Risk Management Department, who helped us with this claim. We try to settle the claim ourselves. If we run into difficulty, then we lean on the county, and they are very influential and helpful to us. So as you can see, this was a 2-year in settlement, and we were able to resolve the claim settlement at the favor of the district and making the taxpayers whole. Many times when you deal with insurance companies, if you've done that before, they want to discount and devalue the property that was damaged. And we were able to withstand that on this particular hydrant strike.
Yeah.
And that goes to speak because our hydrants are new and they belong to the taxpayers, and any damage is going to be the replacement value, not just a discounted value. So that's kind of where we held our marks on that. So that's the end of my report. If any questions, be happy to respond.
Also, it's a very key hydrant right at the top of Altamont. I mean, right at the
There's a lot of water pressure behind it. If you saw the photos both times, they're very significant. And we have noticed on those bollards that are there, a lot of strike marks on the bollards.
Really? Oh.
Yes. Yes. In fact, we photographed that. Our engineer from Friar and Loretta is very interested in, and he'll go over and photograph it every now and then, send me photos.
Jeez.
Just to let us know how wise we were in putting those bollards in.
Any other comments or questions on that? Nope. Any public comment on that?
And just like to thank the staff for helping out, particularly Ryan Cronin. He's a great investigator, and when we have these kind of strikes, he's the first one to work on gathering the information, and particularly working with the sheriff's department, because usually the car is detained that hits the hydrant, and we are able to get the sheriff there and get the information. Probably the one hydrant we have that I don't have good prospects of getting a result from had to do with a crime that was in process. But at this point, absent of crime, we've been able to reclaim 100% of all the damages done. Highest damage on a hydrant strike. The claim was over $109,000. That took $109,000. That took us 3 years to resolve, and it was in the last week before the statute ran. And then we were going to go into another litigation maneuver if the insurance company didn't cooperate, which they did. So these get kind of tricky, and really proud of the staff. And again, thank you, County Council, and to Risk Management for seeing us through on these to make sure the public is made whole when there's damage done to their property.
And as we've seen, keeping these hydrants robust and well-maintained is important. So, and we've been very proactive on that. Okay, moving on to item 10B, receiving a report on the Pearson Hills Water District water main project.
Yes, and is Jeff Tarantino available?
I am, Jay, yes.
Oh, good. Okay. So on this, I'm going to need some help because Jeff is our engineer and from Friar and Loretta. And as you recall, a year ago in January, we had the first report on this water main project with Pearson Hills Water District. And when we have the water main projects, hydrants are disrupted. They're taken out, they're relocated, have to be replaced, and it gives us the opportunity to add new hydrants to strengthen our hydrant defenses. And so a year ago, Jeff presented the report, and I'll have him just mention that. And then there's a schematic that goes with it. And now we have another report coming up this January of 25 as to that project and the cost and the opportunity to put in the new hydrants and also bollards. We added the bollards. So Jeff, with that, I'll turn it over to you to take the commission through those reports.
Great. Thank you so much, General Manager Logan. Good evening, commissioners. Yes, as General Manager described, annually, the Percival Hills Water District implements at least one capital improvement project where they are replacing portions of their systems to improve reliability and overall resiliency. In particular, this year's project is implementing several improvements to increase the potential available pressure during a range of demands, from just normal daily demands to even under fire flow conditions. So as we discussed with the commission last January, the preliminary design of the project included 6 new hydrants and 8 replacement hydrants. We had walked the project limits with a design team from the Percival Hills, their consultant, Pockport Consulting Group, as they continue to develop design, and we were in agreement with their proposed improvements. Over the last year or so, the district design team, the Percival Hills design team, completed their design, issued the project for bid, solicited competitive bids, and they also continue to enhance the project throughout the kind of final design phase, and even with engaging the contractor. Pockport Consulting Group does provide updates to district staff and to Fryer and Loretta when they identify needs to either modify the project or expand the project as they've done this year. So the total project is inclusive of 6 new hydrants still. A total of 9 existing hydrants are going to be reused. And then there's also recommendations from the construction team to add additional bollards for protection in key locations. So as a result of the increase, really an enhancement of the scope of work and the competitive bids, there was an increase in them from the original budget that we had estimated last January of approximately $172,000. It is increased by approximately $51,000 to a total of $222,865. F&L has reviewed the scope of work. We have walked the additional work areas, and we believe that all the work is important and should be proceeded with in agreement with the Percival Hills Water District. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
You have the disadvantage that the slide has just come up, so we can actually see those numbers.
Apologies.
So it'll take us a minute here for everyone to notice that, and this is also in the packet as well. I think the key thing is that remember Denise, I think, was out there originally helping figure out where these things belong in the neighborhood. And this was quite a discussion with the neighborhood to make sure that they were really well protected as things got redone. And I think the key thing I see here is that, in the time it's been designed versus the time it's now to be built, the increases are sort of in line with what construction costs have increased. So we're not seeing anything. Is it fair to say that these cost increases are not unusual with what's currently spec'd for development, for construction?
That's correct, President Spreen. Yeah, no, the increase in unit pricing for each item of work was consistent with current economic conditions of what we're seeing in other areas in similar portions of the Bay Area.
Any questions about this? I know we've looked at these in the past and see the maps of where they're going. So this is really, I think, just a cost update to say that it's a little more expensive this year, but I hope they can proceed with this and we can get these things done.
Yeah. Well, just to mention, this did go out by Percival Hills Water District to a bid, an RFP, and the lowest responsible qualified bidder was selected. So,
good.
I mean, won the bid basically.
Yep.
So we put it out to the marketplace, we being Percival Hills.
Right. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Any comments, questions? Any public comments or questions on this? Seeing none.
Seeing any?
Okay. In that case, we can move on to item 13.
Well, so what we need is direction
Oh, do we
here.
direction?
Yeah. So with direction, consensus from the commission, what I'll do is go back to Parisma Hills Water District and tell them that we've had the report, the commission, if it's of consensus to the commission, then we'll prepare the agreement, come back to you at the next meeting. I'm hoping it's the next meeting. And the agreement will be for that amount of the bid to make those changes, the relocation, addition, and the bollards.
Do I see any discussion or anyone want to comment on this seems reasonable? Do I see a lot of shaking heads like this seems reasonable?
Seems reasonable.
I see a positive. What?
You have to respond to the bidder by January 10th or something like that. There was a date.
Let's see, January 10th. Let me see here.
January 10th.
No, not a problem. It's okay. Yeah.
Right. That's from Pearson Hill. So they're talking. So that won't be a problem.
Right. Right.
So I'm seeing consensus direction to continue to proceed with this and at the new numbers.
Yeah. And I
make
think
it happen.
in light of the conversations we've had, the very sobering conversations we've had tonight, this is all good enhancement for the protection of the community and to make sure that the water mains are what carries the water to the hydrants. You know, hydrants are great, but without good water mains, that's a whole other story. So this is all shows the partnership between Parisma Hills and the district working together, collaborating. Central Fire was involved at the initial review of where these hydrants are going to go. Denise, Ryan Cronin, Paige, I think was involved. So I think we've got the best minds putting together a good
This is over by the Rastadero open space. So
Yes,
these
it
are
is.
fire prone areas.
Rastadero open space. Yeah.
Great. So I see consensus direction to proceed.
Yeah, and President Spreen, I just mentioned that we also looked at the budget on this and we budgeted adequately for this.
Oh, good.
In fact, it looks like this year we'll use the lion's share of what we allocated for hydrants, so which is good.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you. In that case, now we'll move on. Item 13, election of officers. We have both a commission president and a vice president to deal with. When it comes to the commission president, looking at our scenario here, I'm willing to continue serving if the board will have me, or if someone else wants to step forward. But I think that the past
say
few
yes
meetings
for
I saw a
you.
thumbs up, so I'll accept that as a consensus direction. If someone will make that motion.
Do we want to do this now, one at a time?
Well, I noticed that
need-
on our agenda, I was going to combine them, but it is on our agenda as separate items, so I don't want to have Aaron correct me, so we'll do them one at a time. So yeah, I'll do one at a time.
Warren moves to accept Mr. Spreen's offer to serve as president for the next calendar year.
McDonald seconds.
There we go. Great. Any discussion? Any public hatred or epithets? Seeing none, we will vote.
Okay. President Spreen.
Yes.
Commissioner Basigi.
Yes.
Commissioner Kadambi.
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald.
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson.
Emphatic yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
All right, and that motion passes 6-0 with one absent, and President Spreen will serve as the commission president for the 2025 calendar year.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 13B, election of the commission vice president. Would anyone like to make a nomination? I know I will if, would you like to make a nomination?
Toby, would you be willing to serve as vice president?
Yes, I need to work on my public speaking, but I'd be honored to.
Very good. Then I will nominate Commissioner Toby.
Commissioner Toby. Anyone, any second?
I second that.
Okay, I have a second. Okay, and any discussion? Looking forward. I hope that works out. Any public comments on that? Let's roll call.
All right. Yep, President Spreen.
Emphatic yes.
Commissioner Basigi.
Yes.
Commissioner Kadambi.
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald.
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson.
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
And that motion passes 6-0 with one absent, and Commissioner McDonald will serve as the commission vice president for the 2025 calendar year.
Thank you very much.
Nice.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
It took me a year to.
Moving on, item 14, commission member reports. This is an opportunity for commissioners to provide reports on any future agenda topics.
Thank you.
Any comments? This is a very little used agenda item, but it's good to have it on here. Any other future topics? Not seeing any of those. Let's see, any public comments on future agenda items? commission member reports?
None?
Seeing none. Move on to 14B, which is notice that the next regular commission meeting is February 18th, 2025, in person and hybrid in this very same chambers. Any comments from the commission on that? Is there any scheduling conflicts with that? Should be good. Okay, great. Any public comment on the scheduling of that item? Not expecting that.
None?
In that case,
I have one invitation. There is a lot of food, I think, in the back, and please, as you go, you can socialize and take with you dinner tonight.
So we'll have a pre and a post party. here.
Yes.
So we'll
Party
be moving
now.
back there. And that case, we'll move on to item 15, adjournment. This concludes the January 21st, 2025 regular meeting of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District. The meeting is adjourned at 9:25 p.m. Thank you all for all the different things that went in tonight. This is quite a meeting, and everyone who set that up as well. We thank you for the extra work we know that takes. Award-winning emergency services manager, BB, please stop the recording.